Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to Whatnot Sellers. Fun fact, this is Whatnot Sellers show number 100, which is insane. So we've hosted
Know,
100 shows
send
on this
some
account.
send some hearts out in there.
Yeah, crazy, crazy milestone. And it's only right that we have Julie on, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Kenny, and I'm on the community team here at Whatnot. I've been here at Whatnot, just celebrated 3 years last month. So it's been really, really a fun journey, kind of see the growth of this amazing company and everything that's come along with that. And the community team really focuses on building programs that educate sellers at scale, so many sellers at a time. And while doing that, we hope to build human to human connection. And so you can think about events like, real world meetups, which we've been testing and doing here and there. In fact, we've got one next week in Tampa, Florida. We do webinars for new seller education. We have this account, which this is the official seller facing account on Whatnot, owned by Whatnot. And we go live here on this account several times a month with various types of programming. And it usually looks like, product spotlight. So we'll talk about new features, new updates to the products as it relates to sellers. We'll interview sellers. Last week, we interviewed Cindy from Moms and Crumbs. And sometimes I'll invite guests from inside of Whatnot. And so like today, we've got Julie, who's our director of categories and expansion. And so I guess, Julie, maybe you could just give us a quick, who are you? How long have you been at Whatnot? And then, maybe your favorite category on the app.
Oh, I can't pick a favorite category. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie. I'm so excited to be here. It's really a special honor and a treat to join you all. As Kenny mentioned, I sit on our categories and expansion team. I've been at Whatnot for just over 4 years, the entire time working directly with sellers, helping them grow and scale their businesses. So it's been, again, a real privilege to do that and just to see some of the incredible sellers throughout their entire journey on Whatnot. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here today to just share a bunch of those learnings. As we mentioned early, we have a lot to cover. I was really trying to condense, 4 years of information down into nice soundbite 30-minute overview for you guys. So we'll get into it. And I'm really excited to hear kind of what questions and what you're struggling with or where you're looking to take your channels here. Oh, and
Perfect.
favorite category. Oh, this is fun actually. I just started getting into vinyl records. I recently got a pretty sweet sound system. And so I've been loving, our vinyl sellers and finding just like obscure new records or old records that I like.
I love that. Awesome. Okay, so look, if you got questions for Julie as it relates to the topics that we cover here today, obviously we won't be able to get to everything. There's just so much. But if you have a question about something that Julie mentions or something that we cover, drop it in the chat. One of our mods will kind of pull it out of the chat, put it aside, and we'll get to as many as we can towards the end of the show. All right, let's get right into it. Look, we're going to talk about two core topics. We're going to kind of break this show into those two topics. The first topic we're going to talk about is content strategy and show programming and how you should maybe start thinking about that as a seller to get the most out of your efforts as a Whatnot seller. The second strategy we're going to talk about, the second sort of tenet is going to be marketing spend and ways that you can promote your shows to get more visibility and obviously more buyers and sales as a result of that visibility. Okay, let's get right into it, Julie. Let's talk about content strategy and show programming. So the core focus of talking about this is look, creating consistent buyer-focused content drives buyers and viewers to tune in. And we talk a lot about consistency. Like in a lot of the webinars that we do, a lot of times the seller will ask me, hey, what's the number one thing you recommend I do if you had to say one thing? And my answer really hasn't changed over the last 3 years. It's like consistency is the key to success as a Whatnot seller. Thing about consistency is that it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? And so I wanted to ask kind of the first thing I want to ask Julie is, what does consistency, when I say you got to be consistent as a Whatnot seller and the success will follow, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I break it down into kind of 4 parts of consistency, all under that consistent umbrella. The first I think about is stream hours. So the stream hours are really the equity of a seller's business. It's your input that can directly drive orders and sales. And so I treat stream hours like your baseline growth lever as kind of the first starting point, and you can grow those steadily over time. The second, after kind of increasing or driving the consistency in your stream hours, is consistency in your schedule. You want to go live at predictable times and schedule shows in advance so buyers can set reminders, and they're starting to build a habit around your channel. I'm gonna date myself for a hot second. I loved Dawson's Creek. I was a big Dawson's Creek watcher. So this was back in the day when you couldn't just pull it up on, you just can put it on Netflix. I think it's on now. So 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, I had to be sitting on my couch ready to watch Dawson and Pacey. And so I think about that same kind of reminders, like this is a live platform, and so that consistency and schedule of building that habit with your buyers and your viewers, they know when to come back, and they can actually start to schedule their own lives around your shows because they don't want to miss it. The third is consistency in programming. You want to standardize to a weekly rhythm with tent poles so your audience knows when big moments happen. So for example, like every Thursday night we go big, or Friday is our new inventory drop day. So depending on, again, the various programming that you might have, and we'll get into programming in a bit more, they know when to come in. If they like really fast-paced shows, they're coming in for your sudden death shows. If they want a deal, they're going to be joining in for dollar start. So we'll get into a bit more about that later. And then the fourth, I think, is really important, and I talk about this a lot, is consistency in the buyer experience. You want to maintain a reliable shipping experience for your buyers. You want accurate listings and a strong customer care to everything that you do so that your account health stays in the green and that trust compounds over time with your viewers and your buyer base. I'll give a quick example. I talked briefly about my new love of vinyl records, and there's a lot of vinyl sellers out there, but I am find myself consistently going to a seller named Fresh Deals. They ship my records within a day, so I can get it. And I'm really excited about it, and that to me is that consistent buyer experience. And so as you think about those kind of four strategies, those, when you stay true to those four over time, it doesn't happen overnight, but those compound over time so that your audience behavior starts to drive. And ultimately that can be a really big lever for your repeat buyers.
Got it. So thank you for that. And look, I mean, it takes about 3 months is what I remember when I was looking at the data, about 90 days of being consistent to start to see the initial sort of results and success of the traction that comes with that. But it's very true. Look, a lot of people tune into Whatnot sort of during the same times that they would traditionally tune into television, right? So you can imagine like some of the peaker hours would be like after work, say from like 6 p.m. onward, weekends, a lot of traffic, right? Same kind of visibility as like a television or any other kind of leisure entertainment activity. And so like if you are scheduling your shows consistently, then people get sort of used to, like, I go live, right? When I go live, it's always on a Saturday and it's always at noon. And I've been doing that for 3 years. And so like people who do follow me and buy from me, they know to expect me then. And so it's kind of become like I've sort of carved out that time for my buyer base, followers, whatever you want to call it. And it works really, really well. And so I would suggest experimenting with, if you're a new seller, we talk about this a little bit more. It's like experimenting with different day parts and find which ones work best for you. But we'll I'm getting ahead of myself. Julie, when sellers think about planning out their weekly shows, how do you recommend they look at that or kind of address that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think once we hit home on the consistency part, now it's like, okay, how do I do it? What is my strategy to go do that? I think you want to, as Kenny mentioned, he goes live on Saturdays. I think you want to anchor to 2 to 3 fixed time slots per week, and you want to keep them stable. You start that again, you want to, kind of anchor towards that. So every, whether it's Saturday at noon, Tuesday at 5, right? Whatever those times are for you. And you want to keep those, again, consistent over time. You can then ramp your hours gradually. I generally recommend you kind of start with like a roughly 20% week over week versus like going big spikes so that you can build your own endurance and that audience habit. Let's take an example. Like, so if you do 2 shows for 1 hour each, let's say you do a Tuesday and a Friday. Many sellers will come to me and they'll be like, well, I can't double my hours. And it's like, let's not worry about that right this second. Let's think about how over 4 weeks, we're going to get to an hour and a half shows by the end of those 4 weeks, right? So you start with your same shows that Tuesday, Friday, and maybe you're adding 10 to 15 minutes incrementally as you go, so that by the end of that month, you're at that additional stream hours that we kind of talked about and the consistency of stream hours. And you can see like what impact or where is your breaking zone or what does that actually do to your bottom line in terms of orders or GMV or to your audience as well. And you can kind of reassess and evaluate and then see if you want to even increase more from there by even getting to a 2-hour show for each Tuesday, Friday, or even potentially adding another show potentially on like a Sunday. From there, I think there's the programming strategy. Again, I come from more prior to Whatnot was at YouTube, and we talked a lot about the programming side of the business. And so a lot of that is actually I bring into Whatnot because at the end of the day, this is still entertainment at its core that then drives buying behavior. And so as I think about the programming side, it's more of a 3-pronged approach. So let's go back to saying you do 5 shows per week, right? I think 60% of those shows or 3 of those shows per week will be your bread and butter streams. These are your consistent formats they drive that your core audience expects. So you have standardized pacing, you have your standard show host, your segments. And then again, standard pricing. Like you're not, again, if you're selling, if your kind of anchor point is, $20 t-shirts, then that's it. People know when they come in during your bread and butter streams what they want, those vintage t-shirts. I think then one of your shows that week, then this is kind of 20% of your content mix, would be your flagship show. So this can be a one-time weekly, super high intent show that feels really special. It can be either marquee inventory, it can have a clear theme, or even like a really specific style of show. Example, this might be when you do like a dollar start or sudden death, for example. That might be different than maybe, again, your bread and butter shows. And then I think of this other one that's like kind of your experimental test. This is also like about your 20%, give or take. And this can be a new format. So this can be either like you're going to try a flash sale format. You're going to do a marathon stream. We've seen that a lot for a bunch of our sellers this last year. You might want to do a bin for your first hour. And you want to keep learning as you go. And this can, again, be fun, be a trial time for you. But you're not risking, 80% of your business or your whole week by trying all these experimental shows. A misstep that I've seen some sellers take is that they have their bread and butter shows, but then they'll take a whole week or 2 weeks and they'll go all in on experimental formats. And it kind of polarizes their audience, but doesn't actually bring in the new audience. Or when they go back to their bread and butter, the new audience is like, wait, that's not what I came here for. And so by doing this kind of step approach, it allows you to really kind of think about your programming, try new things, but also begin to build your own brand. And I will talk a bit about what I call your USP, your unique selling proposition for the audience, so that, again, keeps your buyers coming back.
I just want to recap. So Julie's basically coming with this approach on programming that's saying, look, if you go live 5 times a week, then allocate those 5 different shows across, do 3 shows that are like what she's calling your bread and butter shows, right? Your core shows, the things that kind of keep the lights on, the inventory that you consistently have and move. Then do 1 show that would be kind of like a big moment, or maybe special inventory, or kind of like a big show for you. And then do that 5th show you could use to sort of experiment with various types of formats. Like Julie mentioned, maybe a marathon show, maybe you co-host a seller and have like a community show, whatever it is. But, I think that that's a really great formula, chat, to consider as you think about, what do I want my show programming to look like on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever it is. And so I want to just quickly kind of summarize that, because a lot of good information. So, okay. And then what are you talking about with launch and iterating?
Yeah, so I think about this kind of more tied to that experimental slot. The app is constantly changing. The new buyers are constantly coming in. And so once you do get your kind of core content and programming plan in place, try it. You want to try out your bread and butter side, but you got your experimental side. And then you want to, especially for the experimental piece, you want to keep iterating on that. Oftentimes, and you want to, sorry, let me say, you want to iterate, but you also want to give it a chance to breathe. I often hear sellers say, once we kind of work through a new experimental format, they did it one time and they'll be like, it flopped, it failed, I'm out. And I often push them on that to say, just because it didn't work initially, what did we learn from it? What could we have done differently? Was there any piece of it that did work? And let's try it for a few more weeks before we make the decision that this does not work for your audience. Because again, getting that new audience in outside of your core might take a bit more time. So after 3 or 4 weeks of trying it, you can have more data to assess, did this actually work for me and my business? Why or why not? What else can I tweak? And that's the iterate piece, to kind of keep going from there or try something new. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's in other words, if you did an experimental type show and you didn't maybe see the results you wanted, I think it's worth asking yourself, what were the results that you wanted to see, and get pretty specific about that. Were you trying to get, 100 new followers out of the show? Were you trying to sell expensive items? Were you trying to move a lot of inventory at low average order value? Like what was that show about? And what was your strategy? What did you try to achieve? And then after the show, kind of look back and see, how did you do against what you set out to do? And I think that Julie had a really interesting point where, like, if it didn't work, I wouldn't chalk it up as a failure. It's also very important to understand that, right? It's important to understand like what doesn't resonate with your audience almost as much as what does. And so when you learn what doesn't, you can double down on what does. And so really, really good information there.
Yeah. And Kenny, I think you touched on something really important, which I didn't cover initially, which is like, what are your goals, right? Especially as you go into this, oftentimes it could be, again, total viewers, total sales. I want to drive 20 new first-time buyers, right? And so if you're clear with what those goals or metrics are, it then does help you kind of look back at those formats and see like what it actually worked for you. So I think that's a really good point, especially as a lot of this conversation is around driving new buyers, right? And getting those new buyers into your shows. So being really clear on those metrics can be very helpful. Because, for example, I'll give you one That example. Somebody said, this didn't work. I only had 50 people in my room the whole time.
Right.
But when we actually looked at their first time buyers from those shows, they had double the first time buyers they've had in previous shows. And so if you were just anchored towards people in the show, maybe that was not a success. But if you were anchored towards driving first time buyers and you look back at your data, wildly successful show format for that seller.
Totally. And maybe it's worth noting that you can see all this sort of data if you're a seller on the back end in what we call Seller Hub. You could see it at a show level. You could see it also at like a time period that you select. So it could be like you could look at aggregate data, say 3 months looking back, a year looking back, or you could set a custom period, a custom range of dates that you want to look at on your business. And again, you could look at all kinds of various metrics, right? Things like gross sales, orders, followers, all kinds of really interesting metrics that can, again, put some light on, like you could say, oh, wow, that show did really well. What did I do during that show? And then you think back and you're like, oh, that was the show where I ran flash sales or something, and it really gives you sort of these signals into your business. So we really do like say, hey, if you haven't taken a spin around your seller analytics, and just kind of understand what's available to you, do that, right? Like just, you don't have to be a data expert. I'm certainly not, but we've really made it in a very intuitive, very easy to use, friendly dashboard that, you can glean insights at a glance without really having to dig into numbers. And so I always recommend, if you're a new seller and you've done a few shows, check it out. I think you'll walk away with some insights and you'll be better for it. What else,
Agreed.
Julie, have you got? I think next up is on operations.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of touch on this and then we'll probably go back into kind of some more just kind of the tried and true pieces. I really was thinking a lot about the sellers who might be watching this today, and we're talking a lot about, again, consistency, increasing stream hours, and getting those new buyers to come to your shows, right? I think as part of that, though, I'd be remiss if I did not harp on your operations and staffing to support the scaling of your business. And so as you think about like, okay, I'm going to be increasing stream hours, or I want to drive more orders, and I want new buyers coming in, also make sure that your back-end fulfillment is ready to take that on so that you don't burn the new buyers that you're bringing in, right? So the last thing we want to do is, here's all these strategies for how you're going to get all these new people to buy from you, but then they're going to have a poor experience if you do not ship on time, if they have a defective order. And so make sure that as you're thinking about this, especially as you're scaling those stream hours, you're not going from 10 hours a week to 50, even if you have the energy to go do that. That incremental increase will help you keep up with the fulfillment needs that you have so that you can stay within that 2-day window. You can review your defect-free order rate and make sure that you're in a healthy spot before you even grow further from there. And then my second point on that, outside of the ops piece, as you do at scaling, is the staffing. So as you continue to grow, there will be a point where you will probably need some more help. I assume many of this audience, you might be doing the live streaming, you're doing the fulfillment, you're doing the shipping. Applause to you. That's a lot. But at some point you might have to start to think about, how do I either get somebody to help me with my fulfillment? What would that look like for you? And knowing where your breaking points are so that you know when to go hire or build someone on ahead of time, so that, again, your operations and your fulfillment stay really smooth sailing for you throughout your scale journey.
Yeah, totally. And look, you don't need a full team, right? Like you could, I do it with my nephew, and I can't imagine it doing it without him, right? It's just live selling. There's a lot going on, right? You got to get the inventory, you got to list the inventory, you got to go live and sell the inventory, you got to package the inventory, you got to put it in USPS. Like there's a lot of things going on there, and like I just think it's more fun with a friend or a family member, right? You don't need to have like a warehouse with a team just yet. You could just, hey, call up a buddy, be like, hey man, I'm gonna go live. Like, you want to come over, hang out, we'll order some pizza and do this. And like, I find like it's just a very fun thing to do with people that you love. And so, you don't need a full squad just yet, but hopefully you will one day. So look, I get a question asked. This is probably the most common question I've heard, Julie, from sellers. And the question is like, what is the best time to go live? And I think sellers are looking for like a silver bullet answer, and there isn't one. And like my answer, what I usually tell them when I hear this question is like, look, go live when you're in the right headspace to go live. In other words, go live when you don't have a bunch of errands that you need to run, or kids, that need to be fed, or animals that need to be walked. Like, go live when it's a good time for you to go live, and you could be present, and you could really like not be stressed about external factors. And I think that's like a very good kind of a blanket statement. And then once you have that, go live consistently within that time frame. We talked about that, right? Like do that for 3 months consistently, and I think that you will see traction. There isn't like a golden hour on Whatnot where like that's when you should go live. It's really not like that. The truth is, every hour of the day across every category on Whatnot does, there's opportunity. And so this isn't like an easy question to answer, other than like there are some best practices. And I would like Julie to hear your point of view on sort of like, when asked what's the best time to go live, what do you say?
Nothing departed from what you just shared. I think you nailed it. There's no universal best time. You need to pick what's going to work for you, and that again back to that consistency piece, that you can do that again and again, and that you can build your audience around those times. So you got to do what works for you in your schedule. I do think though, if you're new, that it's actually quite interesting to experiment in less competitive windows. So like Tuesday at 6 a.m. I know, tough time, but maybe you're an early riser and this would work for you. But there are people, especially as we've expanded internationally, there are people kind of on the app at all times looking, and again, you don't need a lot of people in your shows necessarily. You do need a couple buyers though, right? And so you might be able to find those buyers at off time. So from there, I just say experiment. Look at your data, review your per stream performance, so the daytime duration and the live stream summary, and you can confirm kind of what works best for your channel, and then start to own those time slots. But then back to that experiment piece I talked about, make sure you're experimenting. And again, as you kind of grow, you can start to enter into more competitive times or find new times that would work for you.
Awesome. Just realized we're at the 30-minute mark and we've got so
Wow,
much
time
more
flies.
so much more to
Gotta pick
cover.
it.
Yeah, let's pick it up. Let's try to pick up the pace and maybe not rapid fire, but in the spirit of trying to get through all this information, let's talk a little bit about content and programming and how can sellers keep their shows entertaining and engaging. I know that you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's you don't want to be running the same thing all the time. And I think about thematic programming a lot. And thematic programming can be a lot, like I've seen everything under the sun at this point. 10K follower celebration, vault night, back to school. And you can schedule them in advance so that buyers can go save these shows, or people who are interested can go find them. We're in the holiday season. Can't believe it, Halloween this week. But you want to start like you basically want to think about, how do I program this out for the rest of it? And this can be fun for anyone. Like, you could be a golf seller dressing up as like your favorite golfer for Halloween, going live during a show. You can take advantage of like National Chocolate Day, even as a card seller, right? And add like chocolate giveaways. So there's, again, looking at the kind of programming, all the holidays coming up, things that speak to you, things that you might want to celebrate as part of your own journey. People love to get behind you as part of it. So you can really kind of be creative with that. You want to rotate all those show formats. So various flash sales, dollar starts, marathon streams. Again, back to that experiment piece, you get to try different show formats that you want to try and see what you like, and then stick to those. And then finally, this is really fun. I think we've really seen an upgrade in production from a lot of our sellers. Folks are learning OBS. This is a bit more on like the advanced level. So once you feel ready, you can start to implement this into your shows, but it really does up level your production, and you can do kind of some fun other thematic programming tied to your shows as part of that I think can create some really engaging content. So those would be my rapid fire tips.
Love it. And I think let's skip the metrics bit, because we kind of mentioned, we touched up on it. So on seller analytics, we could skip that and let's get right into, let's see.
I'll say one thing about seller analytics. This is
Yes.
just like a behind the scenes tip though. There's Seller Hub. You want to look at your weekly orders report. That's my favorite report of all time. Comes out on Monday. It has a lot of information in there for you. I've been having a really good time throwing that into ChatGPT or other AI tools. And so just being like, show me the best insight, or compare these two reports to each other. And or like, again, back to kind of metrics that you might care about. I want to see my first time buyers as they've increased over the last like 4 weeks. Help me understand where that is. So you can use that to your advantage. So rather than pouring and spending hours over these reports, getting a little savvy with some AI can go a long way. Just one caveat, AI is, again, not always 100% accurate. So just double check your work.
Yeah, it can hallucinate.
I've seen that happen. It's like made up things.
But that's a great, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, the weekly orders report has a lot of really juicy information there. And yeah, you could pop it right into your favorite neighborhood AI and see what it has to tell you about insights. All right. I often tell sellers that they should study other sellers, like especially as they're getting started, and not necessarily in the category they plan on selling in, just like, who are the sellers on the app that you find yourself watching, not necessarily buying from, but like sticking around and enjoying the show. And then maybe take some notes on like what it is that you like about them. And then I tell them to sort of use that as sort of a blueprint to craft their own style. Not, I want to be very clear, not their personality. Like you can't copy somebody's personality. You got to be authentic on Whatnot. I mean, that's the number one thing. It is very tiring trying to be somebody that you aren't on lives on a live platform like Whatnot. So with that being said, like, do you have any best practices or tips, or do you agree that that's even a good approach?
Yeah, I think it's great. Like, look, I think it can be really inspiring and encouraging to go watch other sellers and just see what they're doing. I loved your advice on watching people outside of your core category because it's just really interesting to see what other categories or sellers are doing. So from plant sellers to, Disney pin sellers, they're all doing various show formats. So to use that, I would just say, I say benchmark the mechanics, not the identity, right? So you want to see what you like, note pacing, format, thumbnails, audience engagement tactics. What are they doing? How did they run a giveaway? What were their conversion hooks? And then make those notes, and then you can adapt them to your voice, your tone, your show format. So you don't want to clone them because I think you'll get called out on that too. But you do want to learn from them and see what you want to take and build that into your own, call it your unique selling proposition. We talked about that for a bit, but how can you make it your own?
Yeah, I love
And
that.
finally, one watch out or gotcha on this one. I hear this too. I saw another seller doing it, and so I should do it. I should do that too, even though that other seller was probably doing something that might have been breaking policy. You never want to replicate something that could get you in trouble or kind of break a policy. So it might feel like a quick win, but that could impact your policy standing and even more importantly, the buyer trust with you. And so even though you might see something another seller's doing and you might want to try to do it too if it feels against policy or something like that, or even just might create a bad buyer experience, you never want to run down that role.
Yeah, good, very good point. And look, chat, the beauty of Whatnot is that you do get to show up as your authentic self. And that is part of your unique selling proposition and sort of why people will decide to follow you, decide to buy from you, decide to trust you. It's very important that you double down and trust that you, as you are, your personality, you will find your tribe on here. Like it does take time, but I'd rather have 100 followers that are like-minded and like me authentically and genuinely than 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers who don't really like me but are just coming for maybe a giveaway once in a while. Like be yourself, and the right following will come. I really do stand by that, and it'll pay dividends in the long run as well. Okay, let's see. I think we should just get to the marketing bit. What do you think, Julie?
Yeah, I'll just end this first section with
Yeah,
one final thing. There's a lot we covered, right?
so
The
much.
biggest thing I would just take home is team hears me say this a lot: crawl, walk, run. So pick one thing from what you heard today that you think is actually doable and start there. And then you can start, achieve, and then continue to move on through some of these other strategies. Don't try to do everything all at once. It will feel very overwhelming, I think.
Okay, that was topic number one. We talked about programming, we talked about content. Now let's pivot, and I really want to get to some of our questions that we got from the chat. So I'm going to ask us, Julie, to go faster than we had intended on this and see how we can get through it. And so the next topic we're going to talk about is marketing spend and promotions. I will caveat this real quick by saying you don't have to spend on marketing to be successful as a Whatnot seller, but there are a lot of tools available to you that can help differentiate yourself, help grow visibility. I mean, look, if you're really building a business here on Whatnot, businesses usually allocate about 30, if not more percent of their overall budget to marketing, to getting more buyers. And so like if you're thinking about your Whatnot account as a business, then you probably should also consider a level of marketing. But again, you don't have to use any of these tools. We just want to really make you aware of them so that if you decide you want to try them, you've heard of them and you know kind of a little bit about them. So, okay, let me see. Where are we at with these? Outside of content strategy and programming, there are a lot of ways that sellers can stand out, right? Some of those involve investing in paid promotions. That being said, it's not a requirement. We mentioned that. Our intention here is to make you aware of these tools in case you'd like to try them. Julie, what is your general advice at a high level before talking about these tools? Specifically, what's your general advice for sellers who are considering spending some money to promote themselves on Whatnot? And before you answer that, I do want to mention, chat, that when you do a giveaway, you're investing in marketing, and you might want to maybe reconsider how you're spending that money into some of these other tools. Okay, with that, I'll ask Julie, what are your thoughts? A seller comes up to you, says, Julie, I'm thinking about maybe allocating some money to my marketing efforts. What do you say to that?
I'd say fantastic. Let's talk about what part of the marketing funnel, though, you're really honing in on. And so I'll just cover those really quickly. There's 4 funnels. The awareness, right? So if I start here and kind of drill in awareness, how do you get people to see you, right? I want people to see my thumbnail or come to my show. That's step one. Step two is engagement. Now that they're actually in my show, how do I get them to engage with me? Step three is now that they're in my show and engaging, how do I get them to convert to be a buyer? And now that I have them as a buyer, how do I get them to keep coming back so that they buy more and they continuously buy from me, right? So that's your marketing funnel. I think depending on where you are, you want to be very specific about like where do you need the most help or what are you trying to do, right? Are you trying to drive awareness, engagement, conversion, or retention? And if you say all four, I'd say let's start with one. Most likely the top end of the funnel, that awareness side. And then that helps us figure out what is like the right goal and the right tool to actually go deploy for you. And then how much money should we actually put into that so that we can understand was it effective or not. So I think we'll talk about some of those tools, but I think back to what Kenny said, there's no right amount of money that you have to do or spend. If you start with what is my ultimate goal and what does success look like, that will then help get to a lot of like, well, then what is the right amount of
Yeah.
spend or promotion in order to get there? So I think we can move from there into kind of some of the tools, and then that will help all anchor back to that marketing funnel kind of, four-step process I highlighted.
Yeah, I think that's really good, setting the stage with what part of that marketing funnel are you trying to attack? And then always start from like the best case scenario, like start with the result that you're trying to get and work backwards on how you can get it. First tool I want to talk about is promote tools, right? Essentially, promote tools allow sellers to pay for or sponsor visibility of their shows across the For You feed and across their category feed. You've seen these shows, they say sponsored on underneath the thumbnail, they're in high positions in the feed. This allows you really to get like additional eyeballs that you otherwise may not have gotten, or maybe a different cohort of a type of audience that you may not have gotten organically. And so who should consider using, and again, if you want to learn about promote tools, Casey, if you don't mind pinning our help URL, help.whatnot.com, you could just search promote tools there. It'll show you exactly how to do them step by step, answer all your questions. But here we're talking about like strategically, Julie, who would consider using promote tools?
Yeah, promote tools are great for folks who at the top of the funnel, awareness, right? You open up Whatnot app and you want to be on that first page to the best of your ability so that you can drive people into your show. So that creates more viewers in your show and urgency and bidding momentum. And so that can be kind of holistically for your show, or if you have like a really hot part of your show that you're really excited about that you want to get those extra eyeballs in. I think those are, again, fantastic opportunities to try the promote tools that we have available. The second part of that is it also can be for if you have like a big tentpole event, right? So one example recently in fashion, we had a seller who had a phenomenal collection of Farm Rio. Farm Rio is a really hot brand right now in women's fashion. And so we knew that the existing buyer base would be excited, but we wanted to bring some more hype in. So promote tools worked really well to capture this new audience for this specific tentpole collection and show that the seller was running and drove more quality traffic into that show for them. So it performed quite well.
Love that. All right. Next one I want to talk about real quickly is coupons. Essentially, coupons are, well, sellers can create their own coupons and offer it to sellers. You can think of it as like a promo code, right? Like apply a promo code, but you, the seller, gets to create that promo code. That happens again in Seller Hub on the back end. You can create coupons. You can allocate them to certain shows. You can allocate them to all your shows. You can deactivate them whenever you would want to stop using, having them out there. Again, super duper customizable. But who would you recommend, Julie, in the funnel sort of, I think this might be more of a conversion one, right? Like, how do I incentivize people who are not my buyers yet to become buyers, to convert them to buyers?
It's essentially convert. It kind of moves to that second part, that engagement to then conversion. So coupons drive product trial. At the end of the day, also, I say coupons also evoke great feelings of happiness and value. I love a coupon. Like, I got 20% off, or I got to buy one, get one. I feel great. Not only do I feel great about my purchase, I feel really excited about this seller who now has given me this great value. And as part of that, it also then creates a sense of urgency to buy because coupons can be a limited time. It can be just for a show or just for a set amount of time. So our coupon product does give you a lot of flexibility to kind of set what you would like. And I think that's one of those conversion tactics to turn watchers into buyers.
Love it. All right. We're blazing through these on purpose, chat, because we want to get some of your questions at the end here. The next tool we can talk about, this one's kind of, I love this one on a personal level. I think this is like a well-kept secret almost, is you can offer free or reduced shipping on Whatnot as a seller, which means you decide if you want to subsidize the cost of shipping for your buyers, or if you want to cover shipping for your buyers altogether. There are some really nice benefits of doing this. Like you get more visibility in the feed. Your show thumbnails are labeled as such with like a purple label. It says free shipping or reduced shipping. People actually search for shows as a buyer, I can go and search for shows, only shows, show me only the shows that are offering free shipping. And so like, and people do that. And so like, it's a great way to be visible. But Julie, where in the funnel would offering free or reduced shipping come handy? Maybe in a few places. I don't know.
Yeah, it can actually, again, I think you've touched on it. It can be on the awareness side because that can
Yeah.
be something that someone might just want free shipping, where a lot of us, especially US based, are very accustomed to free shipping. So that from the awareness side, from the engagement side, again, you can take a passive viewer into an active, engaged potential buyer just by through that offer. And then ultimately it is that conversion piece, right? So now they're enticed to buy because they see this value within this either free or reduced shipping. So all three of them can really work really well for you. As I think about like when and where to do this, especially if you're just starting, I think it can be great during really high traffic days. So if you are going live again on a weekend or around a big event like Black Friday, fantastic opportunity to try again either that free or reduced shipping, both again to build that awareness piece, but also to drive that conversion. And then the second piece, I think this can also tie to kind of what you are selling. It can either help remove friction for lightweight goods, like example cards, or for really premium items. Like if I buy, I don't, because I'm not a purse gal yet, but if I bought like a $15,000 purse, I would absolutely expect some free shipping with that purse as part of that luxury experience. Because nothing's worse than like, here's your 15,000 plus 999 for shipping. It's like, no, no, you just bundle that. You bundle that in for me. So
For
those are kind
sure.
of a couple examples of when I would think about trying to use that.
Look, Julie, we got about 10 minutes left. So I do want to get to some of the questions from the chat. So are you good with us just going to that? Is there
Last one I'll
anything
just
here
say,
that
because I want people to know about it as part of the funnel, is Rewards Club. That's
okay,
the engagement side. So you can look up Rewards Club and learn how to do it, but it's a fantastic, once you've again built those other components as part of your strategy, then now how do you reward and get those buyers to come back and become repeat buyers? It's also a phenomenal community tool and you're really rewarding your most engaged and active buyers. So do check that out, especially if you're ready for that engagement part of the funnel.
with that, Julie, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun. Honestly, I feel like I could talk to you about this stuff for easily another hour, but unfortunately, we have other commitments. So let's get into it. First question from the chat comes from Sweet Georgia Peach. Love that username. What is the best way to keep people in your room once they are there?
I mean, so many, but I'm going to try to
Right.
rattle off quick fire a few. I think again, there's the welcoming aspect, like, hi, welcome. I'm, so happy you're here. It can be an interesting one. Is there anything you want to see, right? You're going right into that engagement side. That can be for smaller rooms. I think moving quickly through things, especially like sometimes I find that, people are kind of jumping around shows too. And so if, they're in there, you might have 10 seconds to try to keep them. So kind of more for a smaller room necessarily, but is there anything you want to see or you're moving quickly through things like here's what I've got. Let's talk through kind of what you're here for. Those are like two initial tactics, but I think this kind of goes back to like again, those are more for kind of as you get started, but I think I go back to that consistency piece of like what is it that we're your unique selling proposition? What is your content strategy so that you're not getting too far down the road of like, I'm trying to intro to say hi to every single new person that's coming in and figuring it out. It's like you can use your show notes and you can also every like 15 minutes or so remind your viewers like, again, just in case you're new here, you might have had some new people. Here's what we're doing tonight. We're doing dollar starts the whole night long, or this is the thematic programming. So that way they know, because don't always assume that those people in your room, they might be again there for the very first time. And so if you start to use some of those strategies again, kind of mixing in where you see fit, I think that you'll start to find that engagement in your room does stay.
This next question I can address really quickly, and this username is long and difficult, so I'm not going to read it. It's something along the lines of Iceman. So the question is, does Whatnot have a list of recommendations in regards to shipping processes, equipment, etc.? Glad you asked. We have a wonderful website called Seller Academy. In there, you can find a ton of resources like quick start guides, shipping guides, recommendations on various shipping material. Everything is like, if you're a new seller, especially, it's called Seller Academy because by the time you're done with going through that website, you would have graduated to a more confident seller. Honestly, when I look through that site, it's also full of links to other resources like our blog, like all kinds of things, right? So make sure you go there, and I think you'll be happy with what you find. Next question comes from Killer Whale Toys. as a toy seller, how do you possibly try and compete with toy stores that do dollar starts and are known before they come on the platform?
I think I kind of go back to some of what we talked about, which is kind of watch what they're doing. What are they doing well? I don't necessarily it has to be dollar starts, but then kind of watch and observe and take what you like and then make it your own. But always go back to what is it that makes you and your show unique and what can you win your audience over, right? Somebody might be doing dollar starts and might have like a slightly, less expensive product. But like if they don't have an engaging host and if they don't have a great buyer experience, I'm probably not going back to them again. And so as you think about what makes you uniquely you as a streamer, the products that you carry, the joy and the passion of what you carry that with, don't underestimate that and that long-term sustainability of what you can build. And I'd say just try to keep to what you do best. And then again, trying these various show formats so that you are creating the most engaging, again, most engaging show format and the buyer base that you have. And again, you're looking at them, but you're not always comparing yourself to
Yeah.
them. So you're aware of what they're doing and you're pulling the best of it, but you're on your own path, you're on your own journey. And I think that will be something that will serve you better.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's great advice. I could take a stab at this one that comes in from the Rusty Brewster. Is it better to use my logo as a thumbnail for shows to gain recognition, or should I use a picture of what I'm selling? Look, I always say that a thumbnail should convey three things essentially. One is it should grab attention, right? Think about it. People are scrolling through a feed of endless shows almost, right? You want to make sure that somebody sees your thumbnail, they pause. It gives them pause. And then they look and they kind of see what's going on. So with that, I mean, if it's just a logo and no one really knows your logo, I would scroll right by that, right? And I'd say, so grab attention is the first thing. I think number two, you do want to convey to some degree what I can expect if I tap into that show. So if I'm selling, Hot Wheels, I would expect a car on the front or some Hot Wheels or something about that type of category. And then, of course, underneath the show thumbnail is just as important as the show title, which you can, again, convey a message, make it relevant to what you're selling, be specific. Again, the feed is a busy place, right? And you're competing for eyeballs and you're competing for taps. So think what would make somebody stop and tap into this thumbnail, this show title. And if you work backwards from there, I think you'll have good thumbnails and you'll have good shows. And I would go back to Julie's recommendation on leveraging some of these AI things that are available today to create great show thumbnails, right? You don't have to be a graphic designer these days. You could just say, hey, make me a show thumbnail for whatnot, and I sell Hot Wheels and I want it to be cool and colorful and whatever, and boom, you'll have it. So again, use those tools. The worst thing I think you could do is not do any thumbnail, and then it just uses your profile picture and in like a very low resolution version of it. And so it's just like not great. Don't do that. Anything to add on that one, Julie?
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull from my YouTube days. We used to say you have under 3 seconds to capture someone's eyes, and so keeping that in mind, too crazy of a thumbnail, too nuts. I don't really know what's happening. So I personally love like crisp, clear with the title. It tells me exactly what I'm getting. So then I'm interested, I can pop in and see the inventory that they have. And then mix them up, right? So nothing, again, I'm a perfectionist at this, but nothing I hate more when I go into a profile or show and it's the exact same thumbnail across the board. I realize it is extra time, but that extra time can be the thing that captures another 5, 10, 15% new audience for you. And so over time, that will pay off for you.
I love it. Next question I'm going to take from Go Retro Threads. I'm new to Whatnot, done about 5 live shows now, and so far going well, but the prices are low. How can I up the prices people are willing to pay? And I think this goes back to kind of like your pricing strategy. Where do you start your auctions? You don't have to start at $1, et cetera. You can protect your margins. Julie, any kind of pointed thoughts on that?
Well, first off, congrats to you. 5 lives. That's awesome. Clap it up.
Right.
Come for you. Keep going. Second is as part of it, again, you're starting off, you're still on the newbie stage here, which is fantastic. And so you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you. So I'd say, again, back to that content, I'd go back to those notes of the consistency piece. And I think back to that, your bread and butter strategy, maybe your one tent pole is that higher AOV show. And so you're thinking about like, look, I'm going to be running again, I'll just ballpark $20 shows here, but here's my $100 show. And this is my average price point. And so giving your audience that understanding. And then secondly, don't sell yourself short. You don't have to start it at $1. Start it at what works for you. If people aren't buying it, that's okay. Do it again as your audience gets bigger. Wait another 2 weeks, right? I don't want you to cut your margins out just because that's what your audience wants right now.
Yeah. And the other thing I would add to what Julie said, just maybe something interesting to think about. You're 5 shows in. Again, congrats. That's a big achievement in and of itself. But those great steals that people are getting, those great deals, you're in effect, it's almost like you're spending on marketing with that, right? In a sense, you may not have gotten the profit margin that you're looking for, but you're getting people to buy and trust you, and then they get the package and they're happy, they'll come back, right? And so it's almost like a good, what would you call it? Almost like a first-time customer acquisition tactic as a new seller. It's like, I wouldn't look at it as lost margin. I would look at it as gained loyalty, followers, and buyer trust and all that sort of thing. And so, yeah, great job, though. Next question from 3D Carpenter. Which would you say is better, more frequent shows or less frequent but longer?
Tough one, only because it's kind of a bit
Yeah.
vague in terms of the timing. So my general advice here is like I think it depends. It's a seller by seller and then an audience by audience and an inventory by inventory decision. That said, you definitely don't want to be doing like less frequent, like once every 2 or 3 weeks. I think we want you to try to go live weekly, at least to start, and maintain that, and then move into like twice weekly, 3 times weekly. And I would start there. I don't think, but then as you get to that, I don't necessarily think you need to be going live every single day for 1 hour versus running like very good, high quality shows 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Last question we'll take before we do a raid from intentional pieces. The question is really like, how much should I spend on my packaging material? Da, da, da. And I think really what the seller is asking is like, hey, how important is it to invest in good packaging? And I could take a stab at it. I think it's kind of, I think you'll probably say the same, Julie. It's like, look, that's the final part of the sales process that you complete, right? Like someone came to your show, they watched you, they trusted you, they purchased from you, and now they're waiting for their package. Now they open the package. If the thing is damaged or it's thrown in like a crummy box that's been used one too many times, it's like you did all that hard work just to kind of like, yeah, you got the sale, but I doubt that person's going to come back. I think the packaging is actually a place where you could really make sure that you capitalize on the end of that process. You could write a little handwritten note. You can throw in some candy. You could just package it as if you were packaging it for yourself, which is always, how would you want to get it type of thing. And that's pretty good way to orient your packaging methods. But I would say packaging is important. I wouldn't skimp on it. I think it's really important to get it out the door, especially within the 2 days, which we require, but also in a very like robust, thoughtful manner. Julie, anything to add on that?
Crushed it. Only thing I would add is, your defect-free order rate is in your seller hub, in your account health. You can check that out. You wanna get that at a 99% or higher. Ideally, you want that at 100%. You want your shipping, you want your on-time shipping or your scan time to be, again, equally strong. And then to Kenny's point, I would rather have 10 repeat buyers that come back to me than 100 first-time buyers, because that's a one-off. I spend a lot of time and energy to get them into my show and convert them. And if I can get them to come back again and again, those are much more valuable to me as a seller personally. So invest in your packaging and the buyer experience. And that is probably one of the best takeaways you could have at the end of this, because when you do that, your buyers come back and then your audience grows, and it's a lovely snowball effect.
Yeah, and gets that flywheel going. Chat, can we blow it up for Julie? What a legend.
Blow it up for yourselves. You're up on Whatnot, you're selling. We're entering into a holiday season, which is a great time for everyone. So, and even just showing up today and kind of learning some more, you just made it even better. So you all crushed it. Thank you for just joining us today. So fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. I think there's so much great information here. Honestly, I feel like we could have talked about this for a while. We're gonna now raid in honor of Julie. I think we're gonna raid a seller by the name of Katie Guamarine.
Let's go, Katie.
Just pull up, show love. Y'all know what to do. And again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you're following Whatnot Sellers. Bookmark our upcoming shows. Julie, thank you for your time. I know how busy you are, and you're welcome back anytime you want to be here.
Bring me back for the 200th.
You got it. Done. Deal.
See you guys on Whatnot.
See y'all.